Hello everyone, here's my review for Shrek 2. There's always been sort of a conversation about whether or not Shrek or Shrek 2 is the better film, and I am going to take the really boring stance that they are equally as good as each other. In all seriousness though, I really do believe that. I think Shrek and Shrek 2 function as perfect complements for each other. Obviously, a lot of the great things about the original Shrek carry over into Shrek 2. The animation got even better than it already was. The voice acting is still just as good. I'm not sure I mentioned this in my review for the first film, but the music, both the soundtrack and the score, are incredible. The original music written for Shrek actually has an insane amount of meaning behind it, which is wild to think about, but it's true. That main theme is just amazing, but the pop songs are also really well utilized. But Shrek 2 does a great job at expanding on the themes and obviously coming with that, the characters of the original film. Naturally, with Shrek, the original Shrek, seemingly giving Shrek and Fiona their happily ever after, Shrek 2 flips that idea on its head and says maybe life after the end of a fairy tale isn't so perfect. And again, I think that's what was so smart about the original Shrek, and they take that and up the ante with Shrek 2 in being anti Disney and inverting the ideas that most Disney films are built on. Because Shrek and Fiona have marital issues, because of course they would. Why wouldn't they? Any realistic couple would have problems during their relationship. It seems like natural territory for a sequel to explore, and they do it really well. The conflict is all believable between the characters, and they still act in ways that you would expect them to, which is always tough when it comes to a sequel. That's something you have to nail. I think Shrek 2 is also just about as funny as the original was. It keeps the adult style of humor. It's always making fun of Disney, and I think it sort of expands its parody material to a lot more of Hollywood than just Disney. It's making Lord of the Rings references, and none of it really feels out of place, which is a great part. I think some parodies can make jokes that will end up feeling out of place because they're not necessarily in line with what the film is trying to parody. But I think Shrek 2 is taking shots at Hollywood's idea of happily ever after, and maybe not just Disney's. So I think that's why a lot of these, little pop culture references aren't as hindering to the film. The pacing is, of course, right where it needs to be. The film is, again, an hour and a half long, just like the original was, so it moves pretty quickly. And I guess I should mention this film is the introduction of the now very popular character of Puss in Boots, and he's pretty great here. Honestly, it's been a long time since I've seen Shrek 2. I hadn't seen it as many times as a kid as I did the original Shrek, and I hadn't come back to it as an adult yet. So the entry of Puss in Boots into this franchise, who has now spun off into his own side series and has had a TV show, I think, and obviously the two movies, was really actually really fun. Shrek 2 made me realize that Puss in Boots has been a great character from the beginning and a fan favorite for a reason, and more than well deserving of his own spin off movie. So, with that, I'm going to give Shrek 2 an 8.5 out of 10 again. I really do believe these films are equally as good as each other. I wouldn't necessarily pick one over the other. And I am usually very vocal when it comes to that sort of thing. If I have an opinion on a sequel being better than an original, I will say it. But I really do like Shrek and Shrek 2 just as much as each other. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts. If you think Shrek 2 is better or worse than Shrek 1, let me know in the comments, and I'll talk to you all in the next one.